Right, Alex. Yeah, because there's been a massive announcement in the world of pest control, one that will surely affect a large number of users, in that Ficam D is to be withdrawn. We're going to have it for probably one more summer, is it?
It's a little bit longer than that. So when they withdraw products, they do what's called phased withdrawals. So they'll announce they are not defending it. Their registration will expire. Then there is a couple of dates. There's a date by which they can't manufacture it anymore. There'll be a date by which they can't sell it anymore, and there'll be a date by which you can't use it anymore. So it's probably actually going to be closer to 2025. That you will not be able to use Ficam D anymore. It simply just means that after that, it won't happen.
Right. So this is the thing which I was a little bit unsure of. My understanding was that the registration was re-registered or whatever they do 4 years ago, and they had another 6 years left on that registration.
I don't believe they work in 6 year chunks. Generally speaking, the active materials get re-registered every 7 years or so, and then the products get renewed at a more frequent basis depending on risk to the environment. So with some rodenticides, it's usually, I believe, every 4 years or so. So there's this split between the active substance being renewed and then the products being renewed, which is
So the question,
why.
so why have we lost it? Why we're losing it? What's happened?
Well, I can't speak for Envu because you can't, but at the same time, they've cited regulatory difficulties. So that can be a whole load of things. So when you actually register a product, it goes through a series of studies. There is the human health, which is REACH. There is the environmental fate, which is fate. There's efficacy. Then there's a whole load of other things as well: phys-chem studies, storage stability studies, etc., etc. So it could have failed on any number of those, except probably efficacy, because we all know fully well that it works. But if they've changed the parameters for what's acceptable for things like REACH, or changed parameters for what's acceptable for things in the environmental fate groups, then it may have suddenly failed one of those risk assessments and no longer is capable. It may actually have nothing to do with that at all. It could be a financial decision. It's a big registration dossier for one product at the end of the day, because it's bendiocarb and Ficam. It's not just the product; it's the active material as well. So with that, it may just be a lot of registration costs for one product that people use predominantly for wasps. So it's a seasonal thing. And what with the restrictions in use as well, and the loss of market share to other powders, it may simply just not have been commercially viable. So you never know with these things, because there's always so much that goes on behind the scenes that no one will ever know.
Right. So that brings us a couple of things. I've had a quick scan over social media. Not on there a lot anymore, but I do get to have a look at the UK pest controllers page, British pest controllers page, etc., etc. It even came up on the rat detection, drain, and sewerage page, which tells you how
Mm.
large this is going to be within the industry. And the comments that I'm seeing are exactly what you would expect. So they are along the lines of it works, so of course we were going to lose it. Um, Back to Vulcan, and people saying that's rubbish, it doesn't work. I agree with them. I've tried it. I hated it. Um, and the usual complaining about, how many times are you going to have to deal with callbacks, etc., etc., etc. I know my thoughts on it, and they're probably different than nearly every other pest controller in the world. I love it. I love the fact we're losing it. I
It's going
really.
to force people to sit up and think about how they do things at the end of the day. There's also a big case to be made that if there's going to be a lot of callbacks, if there's going to be a lot more skill, prowess, and expertise going into the removal of wasp nests, it is going to cut into that market of have a go heroes with their pails of ant powders you always like, because they're not going to be able to manage it anymore. They're not going to be able to achieve the same results. It's going to take you guys with that whole range of tools in your catalog to be able to actually achieve the same ends that you're achieving now. Okay, it's going to be difficult, but fuck, what isn't? At the
Agreed.
end of the day. Yeah.
Agreed. I say it all the time. You get paid more money the more difficult or the more difficult the job is, or the more you risk in doing that job. So as soon as I said that, I just think, awesome. I can't wait. Because for me, it's going to become a hunt. It's going to be a person who will hunt to find the wasp nest. I know it sounds ridiculous to non-pesties, but if you've got a wasp nest in a wall cavity and they're entering through an air brick, the reality of it is spraying that air brick with Vulcan isn't going to work, is it? Am I wrong? Have I been using Vulcan wrong every time I've used it? Because I've just used it as
Vulcan
it
needs
was.
to be applied directly to the nest, where Ficam you could apply it, near the nest, around the entrance to the nest, and you relied on the fact that it wasn't repellent for the wasps to still blunder through that powder, drag it into the nest, and run it around all on the inside. And so you had a better scope of success when it came to using Ficam when it wasn't a direct hit. With things like Vulcan, or take trade names out of it, with pyrethrum based insecticides, they're all exciter repellent. So unless you actually get it
Sorry,
right,
just explain that again. An exciter repellent is
it means
annoys
that
them.
literally they are the products cause a repellent effect. So the animals will sense that there is danger, let's say, before they've even touched it. It's why they use things like pyrethroids to coat mosquito nets, because it means that even if that mosquito net gets a rip in it, it doesn't require that mosquito to land on it to realize that it's a repellent. It actually has a little bubble of effect, if you like, around it. So if you get that around the nest as opposed to in the nest, then it's going to alter the behavior of those wasps coming to and from and around it. It's why they get so pissed off when they get it all over them.
Right.
Because, yeah.
Yeah. So here's a question. When I have used Vulcan, what I've found with it is that we would dust the nest. It would absolutely knock the living daylights out of that nest. And within seconds, it appeared to be dead. And I would get a call back, not within an hour or days. It would be like between 7 and 14 days later. And you would turn up and that nest would appear to be exactly the same strength as the nest that I'd treated 7 to 14 days earlier. And then I would just Vicam it because it
So
was easy.
very quickly, the product you were using, was it the pyrethrum? Was it the natural pyrethrum that you were using? Was it
Vulcan,
the synthetic or the natural version?
the Vulcan, the
Well,
P5, is it? Is it
okay,
P5?
okay, that's the synthetic version. So that should persist for some time. The only thing to think of is in some instances, if you get it into the nest but not onto the combs, then the queen persists, all of the larvae persist, all of those larvae turn into pupae, all of the pupae that are already encased persist as well. And suddenly, a week later, they just emerge out and just hatch out. So you may have got the queen, you may have got the rest of them, but because you have that dust that is repellent, they tactically avoid it. An option, maybe not the correct one in every circumstance, but it is certainly an opportunity.
I tell you what I did see was Onvu have made a statement. Have you seen this?
I have not yet. No, I've been sat in my little labs all afternoon, so I've not
I'm
not
not,
had
I'm
much
not
of a
going to
chance to see it.
I'm not going to try and repeat word for word what they have said in the manner that they have said it, but the gist of it was, don't worry, we've give you another product that's absolutely fine in Chaothrum Partix. And that, you have this available to you. When you read it, Chaothrum Partix is you have to spray the nest and it'll die within 2 weeks. Like, wow, like, okay. I certainly won't be using that.
Definitely not a like for like, is it?
Oh, no. So that leaves us with a question: what do we have? What options do we have available to us? Because it would appear to me that the dust and run boys are done. Once Ficam's gone, they are done, and I'm sure that there is going to be businesses shut down as a result of this. Absolutely certain.
Mm. I mean, it's a shame because wasps are so seasonal anyway, and I've never thought that basing your certainly basing your bonuses on wasp nests is a good thing, but basing your livelihood on them is another thing. You only have to go back not so many years, and you would have wasp seasons that were absolutely crazy, and then you'd have a year when you wouldn't see a single one. And it was almost predictable in the way that you had these. It was a 3-year cycle of wasps coming in and out. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff because last year, of course, there was a lot of talk as to when Ficam W went, everyone just immediately assumed, probably rightly now, that Ficam D was going to follow suit relatively soon, and so there was a lot of a lot of people last year, and especially with the change in use patterns last year of Ficam D, people scrabbled to find alternative mechanisms. And actually, it forced, I think, a lot of people to think outside the box and outside their comfort zone. And we started to see a lot of pest controllers using a lot more of the specialist foams, the fogs, the not the fogs, sorry, the long range aerosol devices, and things like compression sprayer applications using heavy solvent insecticides, which were able to cut through the nests, cut through that waxy paper outside of the nest and actually get to the core of it. There were some of them which were so solvent aggressive that literally nests were, with videos of nests were popping up, literally disintegrating under the onslaught of the spray. So it shows that there's lots of stuff out there. I mean, there's no denying that bendiocarb was by far and away one of the go-to products. It was good because it was not excited. It did not make the wasps excitable. It didn't repel them. You only had to get a partial hit to get good success. And as far as wasps went, it was the bee's knees, pardon the pun. But it doesn't mean that there isn't shit out there for us to be able to utilize. It's just going to require a little bit of lateral thinking and hard work, due diligence, and proving that we are professionals at the end of the day.
So this brings us on to a couple of points, doesn't it? It's one, it's are you a professional? Because it's all right to want. It's great, isn't it? As an industry, we complain terribly about window cleaners and people having a go at doing stuff, and they usually start off with wasp nests or whatever because it's cheap and easy. And then we remove some of the products which make it cheap and easy, so that you now have to be a professional, and the uproar is second to none, isn't it? So I don't mind losing it for that. But then the cost implications now, once we lose it of doing a wasp nest, must be massive, because I don't know what a tin of, say, dye grain aerosol costs you, but I know what 3 kilos of Ficam would cost us. I think it was about 35, 40 quid, something like that. And I probably went through about 2 tubs of it a season if I was lucky, you know. So then you think, well, what's it going to cost to do a wasp nest now? A lot.
I don't know. I mean, it's so variable from up and down the country. But you just have to go for that standard metric, don't you? Which is time, knowledge, and then skill set equals your cost. You need to make sure that you pay for all of those facets in order to make sure that you're not just taking home a paycheck, you're actually taking home a profit. And it's going to require some thought. It's going to require change in processes, absolutely. And it's an opportunity to start setting yourself aside. It's an opportunity to start doing those things, because, as you say, callbacks are going to be big. Can you imagine how big the callbacks are going to be when we have people only limited to be using, cheap permethrin powders that are, sub 5%? It's going to be difficult.
What? Sorry, say that. Cheap. What? I'm totally lost on that. What's this? Cheap permethrin powder is less than 5%. I don't get that. What is that about?
I mean, so things like ant powders, which are very low strength permethrin powders.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I've never looked. I promise you, I've never looked at what goes into an ant powder. It's never. And I understand you see it on Facebook, don't you? People saying just put some ant powder around the hole and that'll sort it out. You know, I've never looked at what's in one. I don't know.
It will be permethrin, and it probably will not be at the same levels as professional strength products, simply because there is inherent eco and human risks attached to giving members of the public an inhalable powder. And it's, the reasons that we've probably lost or one of the reasons that bendiocarb was put under so much pressure was its formulation and formatting and environmental risk and human risk. So it's going to be one of those.
Well, I've already had a message from someone in the UKBR saying this is going to get interesting. I was thinking exactly because this is totally anecdotal, and I'm certainly not blaming any one individual, but there is a belief within the bee remover world that Ficam had its authority for bees being removed, and people would go out and dust the living daylights out in the Ficam and write Vulcan on the paperwork if they left any, that it was still being used for them. I am under the impression that there may be a number of prosecutions coming for just that, but one thing's for certain, even spraying Vulcan into the entrance of an active honeybee colony, I'm pretty confident you are going to have a very, very poor result. And once it's no longer available to the pest controller, then there's going to be a whole world of hurt for anyone trying to take them jobs on who don't know what they're doing.
It's just going to lead to better specialization within our industry. It's going to lead to, as you say, people are going to have to definitely be able to back up their bullshit when it comes to taking on these more complicated jobs. And in my mind, actually, that's a blessing and a curse, because actually, how many pest controllers out there? How do you all learn? How does everyone learn how to do a job? How did you learn to do your first bee job? You probably learned by doing.
Yeah, well, this is the other thing as well. I think what's going to happen is it's like anything. It's the selector of, what is it? They say the selector of good stock. Those who are not going to change will get another summer and then will die. Those who are going to change are probably going to take in with a little bit of foresight and planning, and a little bit of worry, will probably set about this summer trying to work out a system that they can use that is effective without the use of Ficam. There'll be jobs there that and you think, let's give that a go. Let's see where that's going to take us. And the strong will survive and the weak will fail. And one thing's for certain, again, these guys have done 10 wasp nests every day for the last 7 days over the last 2 months. That's going to get tough, isn't it?
It is, but they'll definitely earn their money if they do it that way around.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. So, products which are available to people. What have we used this year? We have used Provector externally. Possibly one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most underused products I have ever seen, and is absolutely mustard on wasps. Like mustard. Yeah, you spray a wasp with it, it falls to the floor, and it freezes apparently from its arse up. The last thing that goes is its 2 front legs, and then and they are like Medusa, sat like a stone. Doesn't excite them, doesn't upset them. You can get up to a wasp nest, and when you look at the dosage on it, it's pretty much a spray it. If you need more, keep spraying. It's non-toxic, but it is chemical, isn't it? It is down to nothing more than a single mode of action. Physical mode?
Remind me that that is it's basically a compressed gas compressed into a liquid. So when you squirt it out, it comes out, and as soon as it hits something, it immediately evaporates, and it turns it into Boris from GoldenEye. To all intents and purposes, that's the hyper freezing spray. Is that correct?
No, Provector is a chemical, and my understanding is it's almost like a glue within a suspension. So
that one. No, sorry, I understand what you mean now. That is, that works on a physical mode of action where it literally holds them in place. Yes. I
see people commenting all the time saying there is nothing faster on knockdown than Perbio Choc. I've never used Perbio Choc, so I can't say. But if it knocks them down faster than Provector, it is incredibly impressive, because Provector, I've never seen anything knock something down as quick as that. And then I don't hide away from it. Killgym or suppliers, so I get my chemicals for them. We've used one of my friends put us onto it, Cypher Max Plus.
Okay.
Absolutely rolls them over. And was it you I was talking to? You were saying, "Oh yeah, but they're oil based." Well, obviously, like you may as well be talking Swahili to me. I just put it in the. I am put it in the sprayer. We're not insect guys, and we do them, but we are not excited by insects. So oil based things, Cypher Max Plus, I think, is one. Perbio Choc is one. My understanding. Why are they so good?
So Perbio Choc's an EC. I'm not sure. It's an RTU based on an EC. So they
Sorry, you're
are
gonna have to. You lost me. Go on. EC.
ready to use product,
Yeah.
which is basically a made up the core product will be an EC, so it's already diluted in kerosene
Okay.
or light hydrocarbons. So with that, you have the act. So with things that are diluted in kerosene oil, basically in kerosene or either I'm trying to remember the name. It is unscented kerosene. When they're diluted in that, there's a couple of other additional modes of action which are physical as opposed to chemical. So you have the chemical effect of the permethrin or whatever pyrethroid they have in there. But then you have the volatile aspect of the actual kerosene itself, which is an inhalation factor, but also the kerosene will move into the spiracles. It will move into the joints of the animal, and it will basically move across the integun of the animal, and it will cause it to go hypoxic, basically stop it being able to get oxygen from the air. So when you've got animals which are very oxygen dependent because they've got fabulous metabolisms because they're flying everywhere, as soon as you cut off that ability to take on oxygen, they go hypoxic quite quickly and drop to the floor. So with that, things like kerosene-based insecticides have a very they have like a double bite to the cherry. They're very very good. The problem is they are very situationally problematic. You know, you don't want to be spraying something with a kerosene base or a hydrocarbon base into many environments because it can be dangerous at the end of the day
Right.
or
Okay.
just destructive.
Yeah. So we've got Perbio Choc in lofts. I think is what most people are using it for, aren't they? Getting up close and personal, just knocking it over. We use
Yeah.
Protector. I love it. Cypher Max Plus can be used externally. Dusts. I've got no faith in Vulcan or in pie dust. I've sprayed them in the entrances and had like 50% callbacks. So we look for other reasons. But what other
But
actives are
interesting enough, you say that. I've been having a look at, so I've been following a couple other pesties around recently and actually helping them, well, watching them remove wasp nests, but also speaking to them at the same time and looking at the nest, looking at the combs and bits and bobs like that, and the actual structure. And I'm sure there are others out there who will be able to either back this up or tell me I'm talking out of my sphincter. But most of the time, because of how wasp nests are designed, that hole isn't just a straight shoot out to where the comb is. It actually goes through a bit of a reflex first because you don't necessarily want there to be a breeze coming straight in and through. You don't necessarily want water to run down the outside of the nest or be blown up the inside of the nest and get onto the inside. So most of the entrances go through a curve before they actually get into the heart of the comb, also the heart of the nest where all the comb is. So if you're just spraying powder into or onto that hole, then you're not actually getting it into the nest at all because it's just going to sit in that right angle. It's like trying to spray it's like trying to spray dust around a drain pipe. You can put it in there, but it's going to struggle to get around that corner,
yeah.
isn't it?
So we take a lot of wasp nests out physically without using chemicals, especially early in the season.
Yeah.
Even later in the season, if I can get a bag around it, the whole lot comes with us in a wanna. You know, I just think it's one of the easiest ways to do it once you are comfortable in your kit, which is another point that we're probably going to have a quick chat about PPE. But yeah, and it's funny you say that because we in beekeeping and beekeepers will talk to you about the warm way and the cold way. When you set your hive up, we set bees up in slats, and if you basically point them at the entrance in slats, they call it the cold way because the wind can come in and round, and then the warm
Yeah.
way is you would put them this way. So Clive was talking to us one day and he said they're always the cold way when you find them. And he's right. And you'll get a photograph of a colony and you'll think, yeah, that's the cold way. It's cold way on that. It's definitely cold way on. But when you get close to a honeybee colony, up close, they nearly always bang a lump of comb straight at the door, which stops that wind, stops that rain. But probably more importantly, I think for wasps and bees certainly, it makes it easier to defend.
Yeah,
You know, you get around it, you've got them there, that they don't have a free run straight into your colony to rob you of the grubs or the honey or whatever it is. So yeah, and then PPE. I genuinely feel like the people at BB who are producing quality suits are going to win, because if you've now got to go looking for that nest, you know, not just squirting and running, lancing a hole and disappearing, you've got to go looking and searching for that nest. The chance of it being stung now has to increase. I can't see how it can't. Not on every job, but if you're doing them with regularity, there are going to be jobs where you are going to have to get in and get involved, go into a loft space, etc., find it in the corner, dust it, what have you. Or we're going to crawl boards. If people don't have them already, you know, the last thing you want is to be stuck up there trying to get yourself out in a hurry. Because I don't care who you are. I must have done, I don't know how many wasp nests I've done, and there is something intimidating about them when you're in an attic with them, and you've disturbed them. You're fully suited up. You know you're safe, and they are bouncing off you. It is still intimidating, and anyone who says they're not is just more of a man than I am, because they are a bit naughty. So, you know, I think people are going to have to be. I just genuinely believe that people are going to have to use this summer incredibly wisely. You know, don't be running around doing 100 wasp nests thinking, I'll take my money while I can and cut and run. You're going to have to
no,
start.
people are going to have to start experimenting with processes. And the thing is with this is that it's going to leave a vacuum in there, and all of the manufacturers, all of the distributors, you know, nature abhors a vacuum and so does commerce. So with that, we will find that there will be some novelty, I have no doubt, hitting the shelves in the next 18 months to try and capitalize on the market share that Ficam D held and held for, you know, decades.
I do. Sorry, go on.
No, that was it.
I was just going to say, I do wonder if the not only if the amount, if this is a blessing in disguise, in that not only is the amount that we can charge going to go up, because there will be less window. I hate that term, window cleaners. There will be less DIY options. I'm trying to say DIY options. There'll be less people willing to give it a go, because they'll, you know, your window cleaner, your gardener, whatever, is going to start getting callbacks, and he's going to be sick as a pig, you know, when he's charged 30 quid and he's been 4 times and he's not making minimum wage at it. He's probably going to get a little bit sick.
I don't believe they'll come back once. Folks like that, it's not their job. They have other things to do. As you say, it's an opportunistic upsell for them, but it's not going to be a primary part of their business. So why on earth would they put the time and the effort into doing free callbacks on something which is for them? It's an upsell. It's an addendum to the service they're already offering. They're not going to go back. It's not their reputation. Their reputation is as a builder, a window cleaner, a gardener, whatever it is. Being known as the guy that doesn't kill wasp nests is not going to be a massive detractor from his business. So with that, I think that we're going to see a lot more people doing it, you know, not getting control, and then pest control being called in after the fact. So I think we'll see a lot more call outs for semi-sad nests next year.
Yeah. I just keep thinking to myself as well, if the price of wasp nest goes up, and people decide to live with them rather than treat them, they're in the gutter and they ring up and someone says, yeah, it's 110 quid, because now it's not just dust and it's going in the loft and fighting with it, or getting up close and personal with a little, you know, like really getting up close, or you need camera equipment attached to your thingy, and people start to refuse it. Are we going to see, I don't know, say say if next year only 66% of people who contacted us go ahead with it because them options aren't there anymore, are we going to see an increase in the number of wasps over everyone's area because there's less being killed, and every nest that we don't kill kicks out 1,000 queens?
I mean, obviously, that's going to have an impact. It's going to have an impact in the number of wasps we see. But you've got to bear in mind as well that even when we had a full suite of tools, we were very effective at killing wasp nests. And yet, every year, year on year, we had wasp nests. The majority of wasp nests are nothing to do with people's gardens, gutters, and attics. They're actually out in hedgerows and fields. I mean, there's a book on social wasps states that almost 70% of wasp nests are found in rural locations in subterranean nests. You know, they're not found anywhere as we as pest management would expect to see them, which is, you know, the majority of what we see, as you say, are elevated, or they are within compost heaps, or they're within attics, or they're within underneath the tiles of buildings. You kill all of those, they come back every year. So there's going to be an upscale, there's going to be an uplift of the numbers, certainly, but we don't touch the ones that are out in the field anyway. So it'll just be more on more as opposed to a massive increase.
Do we start stocking up with wasp banes and things like that? Is a
Well, that's it. I mean, we already, you know, jump so quickly to the chemical, but there's non-chemical, non-lethal. There's non-chemical lethal, and then there's lethal chemicals. We have a lot of tools at our disposal. Um, you know, that, as you say, small wasp nests that are easily visible. It's all mechanical removal. That's non-chemical lethal. You know, you talk about non-chemical, non-lethal. I'm sure we've all, you know, folks listening to this have all had that question. Can you not relocate it? All right.
yeah. So I don't know if this is embarrassing or not. At the start of the year, I said I'm going to try it. I'm going to see what happens. If I find the right one, I'll knock it in a box, shut the box, take the box somewhere, poke a hole in the box, and leave it and see what happens. But we just got busy, and I never got to do it. And I
So there's a dead wasp nest in the back of your car.
Oh, I had loads of wasp nests in the thingy when they chew through black bags and stuff like that, and you come out and you think, "Oh God Almighty, like this is a mess." You know, yeah, that's true, yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty confident at some point the relocation of wasp nests, maybe not in the next 5 to 10 years, but at some point it's going to happen. There is no getting around it. The attitude towards wasps is going to change. It's got to
Oh, it
change.
already has. And you see that there are some, and I won't name names, but there are some already influential social media figures who are priding themselves on hyper low impact pest management, no lethal aspects to their control whatsoever. Okay, let's not talk about how effective they are, but certainly they are very popular. It shows that there is a big market appetite out there for these non-lethal, non-chemical control measures. And so, should we, as an industry, instead of being to poo-poo them, embrace them and augment them to actually make them work?
Well, yeah. Well, so I've had this discussion with a ecologist who was quite militant in his approach toward wasps, that they were absolutely fine and should be left where they were, and if you didn't disturb them, you'd be absolutely great. Um, I asked him a question, and he refused to answer it. I said, "But does your insurance cover you for being a professional and telling someone that they can leave a wasp nest in place, that the occupant being stung by a poorly wasp at the end of its life that's lying in the carpet or whatever, and them suffering with anaphylaxia because you have told them that they're going to be okay?" As a pest controller now, I'm sure a lot of lads are going to get to a point where they'll turn up and they will know straight away the wasp nests that they can deal with quickly and easily and efficiently, and the ones that are going to become problematic. On them problematic ones, if they say, "Yeah, you can leave it, it's probably going to be okay," um, are they going to run the risk of getting into trouble should it go terribly wrong?
That's all down to how you phrase your advice. It's all down to how you presented and the disclaimers you provide with that. If you sit there with a bit of paper and say, I understand that this wasp nest here, risks, rewards, these are the benefits in leaving it in place. There is a definite ecological benefit to keeping these scavenging predatory animals alive. However, there are risks. Please sign here to understand that these are the risks of leaving an active wasp nest within the foundations and with the fabric of your house, and that you understand that anyone can suffer from anaphylaxia. It is an unknown variable that could strike at any given moment. Yes, I understand these. Tick, good, away you go. It's all going to be down to how we pose these, and we're going to have, our industry already has somewhat of a emotional and visceral pushback when it comes to the law, when it comes to, how we phrase things. We want to get in, we want to get the job done, we want to do well, we want to work with our hands. We don't necessarily want to have to become lawyers. And yet there is becoming a point where we're going to have to become more savvy when it comes to these matters.
Yeah. Obviously, we've looked into that side of it quite a bit, not doing an awful lot of it. I just think it's such an interesting time to be a pest controller. I think it'll be. I'm sure this will cause the death of a number of small businesses. The people who make ends meet during the year and then go daft on the wasps to provide themselves with a sort of income. The people who are maybe doing two jobs, a little bit of pest control on the side, etc., will probably give up. Will it be like strychning with moles, where when you lose it, people just give up doing it? Who knows?
A better analogy is going to be, if you think about the cultural change in attitude towards bees, where you only have to go back a decade, then there was several products which clearly stated bees upon their label. There was people who would go out and they would control feral honeybees as part of their routine work. They would go out and control feral honeybees, not in the way that we do now, but simply by applying chemicals, making good the holes in the entrances, and that was it. And that used to be, I would never say it was ever good practice, but it used to be common practice, certainly, if you go far back enough in time. Yet look at today and look how different the arena is for bee control. And
how quickly that's happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. That it hasn't been like, as you say, a movement over 10 years. It's been a movement since lockdown. 2 years, really 3 years. All of a sudden, since the UK, in my opinion, since the UKBR came about, it changed everything in a short period of time. And don't get us wrong, I'm well aware of the fact that it changed everything because public opinion was going that way. They didn't change public opinion. They were there, but it opened up that ability, or it opened up that option to a lot of pest controllers to head into that direction. And they are still heading in that direction by their droves,
Yeah. But I mean, the same emerging technologies, processes, protocols that are coming out for the control and removal of bees can be applied just on a much smaller, more localized scale, potentially to wasp nests, because of course they are, it's similar situations. I think very much.
That's we have two very small, excitable boys downstairs, and obviously Christmas is coming up, so it makes him do crazy things, doesn't it? He was jumping around the living room with the dog last night and dancing the night before, and I think it's just getting all too much for him. So yeah, he's nowhere near as interested in Ficam D's removal as I am.
And quite rightly so. It is coming up to Christmas, and I think so. I think
in summary, go on, summarize it up for Alex. Where we're at with it, then. There's other products out there.
There's other products out there. There's always research and development programs on. Nature and Commerce bore a vacuum, so there will be options available out there at any given moment, and we should see this as an opportunity rather than as a death knell, because this again, it's another opportunity to celebrate our value, professionalism, and skill over those who have been heavily reliant on the tools alone. So there we go. This is our opportunity to to make the most of this, and it's the manufacturer's opportunity to bring out some new exciting tools to assist and help us in that process.
Yeah, and I guess not just the opportunity for that, but the opportunity for us to become more professional, isn't it? For us to really start to stamp on the fact that this is something that needs a little bit of care, thought, and attention, and you can't just go down the shop and buy a little bit of white powder from B&Q and do what you want. You're going to have to get stuck in, you know. I look forward to it, and I wonder how we are going to adapt. But what is it they say? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Necessity is the mother of invention. Adapt, overcome, and destroy.
Haha, said the wasp. Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure. I'll get this pinged up and we'll see if we can get another one booked in. I know I spoke to you about maybe doing one with Davy Brown in the future regarding rat strains, poisons, what we can and can't do, etc. So I'll not spoil that before it gets there, but I'm sure that one will be a really interesting one if we can get that off the ground.
Lovely stuff. And yeah, everyone watching at home, have a good Christmas. Cool stuff.